Hello YouTube, this is Froogle and here we are with the brand new Aerosoft Airbus A319. Now, this is kind of a standalone expansion, so an expandalone to Aerosoft's original Airbus X320 and 321 or extended 320, 321. And they, as I said, they kind of took a strange route here in that it's an expandalone. It's not an expansion. You can get this on its own, and they developed the aircraft from the ground up. So rather than just build on what they already had, they actually started afresh and redid everything, which is good and also poses some interesting quirks, as you're going to see in a bit. I decided what I would do is, rather than the first impressions, we'll actually do a fully loaded flight. So we're currently in EasyJet, Golf Echo Zulu Alpha X-Ray, and our call sign on the radio is Easy 8477. We're doing a scheduled flight from Geneva, LSGG, down to Gatwick. This is a flight that actually takes place every day for EasyJet, about 5:10 in the afternoon local time. They leave Geneva and make their way down to Gatwick. It's just over an hour's long flight. Now, this is a fully loaded video. For those of you who have not seen fully loaded videos on this channel before, I have been a little lax in getting them done. What that means is that we basically push FSX completely to its limits. Now, this aircraft is available for prepared. Most of you, however, are still using FSX, so I thought we would do the video in FSX rather than prepared. Within FSX, we are running, obviously, the Aerosoft Airbus A319X, or extended. I forget what they name it. Their naming system is so obscure. We're running FS Dream Team's Geneva for the scenery, FS Dream Team's GSX, or Ground Services Extreme, for the ground handling. The weather textures are being provided by Rex4 Texture Direct. The weather itself is being provided by Active Sky Next. Now, normally that would be running on a network computer for me, but I've actually found recently I get better performance running it locally. So Active Sky Next is running on the same computer as the sim. We're also using Orbex FTX Global for the global scenery. Once we get into Gatwick, that is UK 2000's Gatwick Extreme version 3. We're also going to be using FS to Crew, which gives me a voice-controlled first officer within the Airbus, because FS to Crew has expanded its offering to support this new version of the Airbus, which is fantastic. We're also using EasyDock. That's how the view is moving right now. There's an add-on called EasyDock, which lets you set up and change the views. That's what you're looking at right now, spinning around the aircraft. Also using Track IR in certain instances. So that's a head-mounted infrared emitter and computer-mounted infrared receiver that basically tracks how I turn my head, so I can just look somewhere and the view will change in the cockpit. What else is running within the sim? I think that's about it within the sim. Oh, no. All these aircraft that you see on the ground here, these are MyTraffic X Professional 5.4. So we're using that as well, which I never normally do. Controlling those AI aircraft on the second computer, let's just whiz on over there to computer number 2. We are using Radar Contact, which is a pretty old ATC package. It's got some limitations. It doesn't handle SIDS and stars very well. We basically need to work around that. We're also running the Aerosoft EFB, which I use for tracking my flight. You can see here we are on the ground at Geneva. If I turn on traffic, incidentally, there's all the other aircraft around me, and they're taking off and landing on runway 23, as you can see up here. So that's the runway we're going to be taking. So tons of aircraft affecting us. Proper air traffic control. Now, a lot of people ask why I don't use an online service like VATSIM for these flights. The reason why is if I use an AI controlled ATC, then I know I've got coverage throughout the entire flight. I also know I'm not going to suddenly be jumped by a bunch of 12-year-olds looking to show how adept they are at crashing their planes into you and basically get on camera. So that's why I don't go online. One of the main reasons I don't go online really ever, except on Pilot Edge. So Aerosoft EFB is going to be tracking our flight, managing our flight plan and all that good stuff. I also did a route for this, and I did my route in PFPX, Papa Foxtrot Papa X-Ray. And I exported that route and I printed it as a PDF. So here is the route here. I've already set up the aircraft with all this stuff. So our release fuel in kilograms is 6,100 kilograms. Our payload, or zero fuel weight, is 55,524 kilograms. Quite a heavy plane today. So that was all done with PFPX, which also exported the route to a company route for the aircraft. Now, that's the first quirk, actually, of this aircraft. You could use simbrief.com to produce your flight plan and export a company route for the Airbus from simbrief.com. The quirk is, normally, flight plans go in this directory. So users your name, my documents, Aerosoft Airbus Extended. There's a directory in there called flight plans, and that flight plan file that is exported by PFPX or that you download from simbrief.com, you would drop into there. So if we go in here, there's a bunch of flight plans in here. The issue is, because this is a brand new aircraft developed from the ground up to be completely new, they've changed everything. So within your My Documents Aerosoft directory, you now have an Airbus directory. You need to go into Airbus and put your flight plan in there, as I've done here. So LSGG EGKK01, that is our company route that we're going to load into the aircraft. So all good. I think that is about it in terms of the software. So 2 computers running this fully loaded flight. Tons of add-ons, really pushing FSX to its limits. And as I said, this aircraft is available and prepared. Let's go back to the main sim here. This aircraft is available and prepared, and frankly, it looks incredible in prepared, and really, really is a thing of beauty. And I don't like Airbuses, so for me to say that, that's kind of cool. I'm having some problems with prepared lately, though. It crashes a lot for me, and I know a lot of you are not running prepared from Lockheed Martin, so we are going to do this in FSX and show that the old girl still has some considerably quite long and sexy legs. And it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. I hope. Alright, so you can see external power is available. So let's get into the flight deck. Now, I actually got told off in a comment. And I don't know if I've mentioned this in a video before, but I actually got told off by a female pilot who dropped me a message because I always refer to the view that you're in right now as the cockpit. Now, I hope I don't offend anybody here, but her exact words were, "We call it a flight deck. Cocks are no longer required." So, just so you know, modern airliners, this is a flight deck, not a cockpit. Anyway, this is the interior. I've got Track IR running right now, which is how I'm looking around. I'm going to turn it off for a second and just pan around here. They've done an incredible job, as they did honestly before, modeling the interior of this. It really does look quite striking. It's very, very crisp, very clean. It looks exactly as it should. I don't have any complaints. Obviously, in prepared, you get a lot of shadows. You get a bit of a high definition, high dynamic range sheen and glow on certain things as well, which is very, very cool and very sexy. But even within FSX, this looks really quite impressive. Really quite impressive. Let's go to the overhead. Take a look here. Now, I'm getting some flashing, as you just saw on my views. I apologize for that. I've tried to resolve it. When you get the Airbus, there's a little pop-up that appears up the top left here. And if you don't have something like EasyDock, you can click on that and it shows you a number of preset views. You can click on those views to jump instantly to that part of the flight deck. I've disabled that because I found it was interfering a little with EasyDock and I would get that horrible flashing that you just saw. So by disabling it, I think I've got rid of a lot of the flashing problems, but they are still there somewhat. Other than all of that, if you've flown an Airbus before, like Aerosoft's previous version of this very aircraft, everything will look very familiar to you. There's not much different here. There are some differences, though, in setting the aircraft up and actually using it. As always with the Aerosoft Airbuses, this is a captain simulation. It's not a true hardcore study systems sim in the vein of PMDG. PMDG, in some respects, are very, very realistic, or many respects are very, very realistic, and many other respects are actually not. They focus on modeling the systems to an incredible amount of detail and then put you in the cockpit on your own, which it doesn't make a lot of sense. 737s, 747s, 777s always have 2 people in that flight deck, not cockpit, flight deck. And for you to manage everything to the level of complexity that PMDG have modeled it is actually quite unrealistic. So what Aerosoft do is, you are the captain. There is an automated pilot, there is an automated first officer that you can switch on down here with this right panel, and they will do checklists for you. They will flick switches and all that good stuff. We're not going to mess with that because we are using, as I said earlier, FS to crew. So here it comes now. This might actually contribute to some of my flashing displays as well. If it does, I'm very sorry. You're just going to have to put up with it. Now, obviously, my frame rates are suffering a little bit. I know some people are going to complain and put comments in, and Froogle, your frame rates are terrible. I had one guy in a previous video say, your frame rates are frankly unacceptable. Good to know. They are suffering because I wanted to make this as real as I possibly could make it. So that involves a ton of AI traffic, which is what's killing my frame rate. I think it's worth the trade-off. Because this is a jetliner or an airliner, much of the flight is going to be automated. Much of the flight is going to be flown with the autopilot on, doing a managed route and managed altitude, and we don't really care too much if the frame rate is a little bit low. It could be an issue on landing. We'll see. We will see how that goes. Anyway, FS to crew is loaded. We are going to be using GSX as well. But for now,
Checked.
let me just mute FS to crew before the captain gets concerned at what I'm saying. For now, pop M in the config here. We're not having pushback managed by FS to crew. We're doing pushback ourselves with GSX. If you've not seen GSX before, stick around for the end of this video. You're going to see it in action. By the way, this is a series of videos. If I were to do a single video, fully loaded flight from Geneva to Gatwick, it would take about 2.5 to 3 hours to set everything up. That's without editing it down. And I don't think many of you want to watch a single 3-hour video. Some of you do, but not many. So it's broken down into 3 parts and edited, which is why you will see cuts from time to time to try to keep it somewhat interesting. Anyway, we are configured, we are ready to go in terms of enabling FS to crew. FS to crew's first officer will jump in and start flicking switches, but we do need to do some work ourselves. So up on the overhead here, we're going to turn the batteries on. 1, 2. We will enable external power. We will align the ADIRS. As we flick these switches, you will see it say on bat and then turn off. With that done, we'll turn on the nav and logo lights. Seatbelt signs and no smoking signs to automatic. Arm the emergency exit signs. Now would be a good time for our first officer to arrive on deck. So we'll tell him, run your pre-flight.
Hi Captain, how are you today?
Great, thanks. Okay, so he's now running through all his pre-flight procedures. So while he's doing that, let's go ahead and finish our setup. We're going to turn the radios on. As I said, we are running Active Sky Next, and earlier, before I started recording, it was actually raining here, and we did have a wet taxiway and wet runway. It doesn't look like it's raining now. I think we're going to make it in terms of the weather, but we'll check. So Active Sky Next, I can tune 122.00 down here. I can actually tell FS to crew to do this as well. And let's get a weather forecast, shall we?
Lima, Sierra, Golf, Airport Information, Foxtrot 1520, Zulu, Weather, Wind 218, at 9er, Visibility 10, Sky Condition, Few clouds at 5,000, Temperature 23, Dew point 11, QNH 1016, Advise on initial contact, you have information, Foxtrot. Lima, Sierra, Golf, Airport Information, Foxtrot 1520, Zulu, Weather, Wind 218, at 9er, Visibility 10, Sky Condition, Few clouds at 5,000, Temperature 23, Dew point 11, QNH 1016, Advise on initial contact, you have
So it looks very much like the rain we had was just a passing shower and it's now gone away, which is fantastic. My view's kind of snapping a little bit here. I changed my view prior to recording. This is a common question that comes up, and I'll explain what these 3 balls here are. These 3 balls are to align the pilot's point of view, or the pilot's eye point. In fact, you know what? That view snapping is actually the jetway coming through the side of the aircraft. That's nice. Anyway, what you do to set up your correct view in the cockpit is you move your pilot's head position up, down, forward, back, until you can only see 2 of those balls, and that they are almost side by side. So I've almost got the exact position that a pilot would be in to fly this aircraft. I've got some concessions due to the fact that obviously I'm in a desktop simulator, but you get the idea. Anyway, with all that done, let us go ahead and set up our flight plan. Now, as I said, we're using a company route. I had exported it, and I put it into the correct directory on my PC, so I can go in here now and say init. We'll click on Align IRS, and we are going to go from Sorry, no, we're not. We're going to go from LSGG. We're going backwards. LSGG to EGKK, and the file name is number 01 on the end. We'll put that in. It will be a little delay while the Airbus figures out what I just did and loads that flight plan and tries to understand what's inside it. So we wait patiently. There it goes. LSGG to EGKK. Our alternate today is going to be EGLL, which is London Heathrow. If we do end up going to the alternate, that is also UK 2000's Heathrow, version 3 Extreme. Our flight number, as we said, is EASY 8477, which is the correct flight number for this flight. Cost index, EasyJet normally run a cost index of 12. We'll do that. Now, what the cost index is a kind of an arbitrary number which defines how efficient the cruise is. So whether you're using reduced power in the cruise to conserve fuel. EasyJet's standard cost index for the Airbus is 12, But my flight plan actually has us, and the actual flight itself has the aircraft cruising around about 322 knots. So once we get up towards the cruise, we're going to look at where we're at in terms of speed and see if we're on schedule or not. If we're not, we will be adjusting that cost index. We are cruising today at flight level 380. We'll put that in here. And with all that done, we actually need to go and load the passengers and load the fuel. So let's go on over here. I'm not going to load passengers yet. We'll wait for FS to crew to ask to do that. But we will start loading the fuel in here. So you have an external configuration tool with the Airbus. You had it in the previous version as well, but you've got it in this too. And it works a little differently. In the previous version, you would run up that weight and fuel planner, put in your values, click load, and it would do it live into the aircraft that's currently loaded in FSX. It doesn't work that way now. It produces a load sheet file, very much like the way the company data link, I guess, is kind of working in PMDG's 777. So it produces this file. You now need to go to the right MCDU here and load that in. So we'll load that in. There's our passengers, and at this point I can start boarding, load cargo, load fuel. What I will do is load the fuel, and this will happen in correct time. That's why I was saying it's similar to the company data link in the 777. You can see the fuel on board number there is counting up: 4,240 kilograms, 260 kilograms, and so on and so on. You can actually see a display down here now as well saying refueling, which we never had before in Aerosoft's Airbus. So things like that are very different. We also actually have down here, well, we always did have it in the Airbus, but now it works, a weather radar. This makes some concessions to the limitations of FSX. It doesn't plug into a tool like Active Sky Next to accurately figure out which cloud has water in it and show you an accurate picture. It more approximates what you're seeing in the sim, the actual weather you're seeing in the sim, and displays it on a weather radar. I don't like it at all. It, for me, impacts my frame rates, which are already suffering because I've got about 1 million aircraft at this airport. So we probably won't be using that, but there is a weather radar. I might turn it on just to show you it in operation. It works the same way as it does in a 777 or any other aircraft that you come across with these. You have a gain control here to turn up or down the sensitivity of the radar. Tilt control here. You can switch it between manual or auto. Manual and auto over here as well, and then turn it on. So weather plus turbulence, turbulence only, map, and so on. Just like any other weather radar you've seen, because these don't tend to be aircraft specific. They tend to be produced by Honeywell.
I'm out for the walk around.
Or General Electric or whatever other company, and then plugged into Airbuses, McDonnell Douglases, and Boeings. Anyway, how are we doing on that fuel? I know it's supposed to be 6.1, so I'm just going to watch that load. And once it gets up to 6.1, we'll finish setting up the MCDU and our flight plan. Okay, fuel is loaded, 6.1. So let's go back down to that MCDU and we'll finish setting up this aircraft. So block fuel is what we'll need to enter next, which is, as we thought, 6.1. We'll put that in here. Now we can go over to performance. This is going to be a flaps 1 takeoff today. Oops, wrong. Clear that out. Okay, so this is a flaps 1, not a flex temp 1. Flexing to 57 degrees, V1 123, V rotate 133, V2 139. Transition altitude is 7,000 here in Geneva. I think we'll leave that as it is. So that is all set up. Let's go and look at our flight plan. We are taking off from runway 23, going direct to Delta India Papa India Romeo. That is correct as well. We're not using a SID here in Geneva. We will be using a star over in Gatwick, but we'll figure that one out in flight based on the weather conditions. So we are all set up and good to go here as well. So at this point, what we're waiting for now is for the first officer to come back into the flight deck, at which point we'll brief him. So let's set up the departure briefing. Let me just move this view a little bit. It is a noise abatement departure procedure 1 standard. We are not using a SID for departure. We're using vectors. We're going straight out. Flaps 1 plus F. Runway conditions are dry. They weren't earlier. Anti-ice is not required because the temperature right now is actually not too bad. So we'll do just fine. It's 23 degrees. That seems a little bit warm actually for Geneva, but we'll take it. So anti-ice is not required. PAX will be on. Once he gets back in, we'll play the departure briefing. He'll respond to that, and we can proceed with getting everything set up. Now you see this little window here, that's radar contact on the other computer. I can file for clearance, but radar contact can be a little bit picky and really require you to leave rapidly. after filing that clearance. With me talking to you guys, we could take a little while, or I'll edit it down so it's a shorter video. So I'm not going to file for clearance until we're pretty close to getting ready to go. Interesting pushback, but okay. AI traffic. Not too bothered really about how they push back. More interested to see them flying and managed by air traffic control. What I find interesting is the route he's taking. Why didn't he turn left and take Alpha all the way down to 23? In fact, you know what? We actually don't need to push back here, do we? From where we are, we can just go. Okay, so everybody's actually taxiing down there, which makes a lot of sense. So the aircraft landing on 23 can actually exit onto Alpha. So we're probably going to have to do that as well. Now, steering on the ground in an Airbus is actually using a tiller, this thing here. The tiller in my sim is tied to my rudder pedals, so I'm steering on the ground normally, using my feet to steer, just like you would in a Cessna. But with this Airbus, you can actually tie that to a control. So I'm actually flying with the X55. If I wanted to, I could actually bind one of the rotaries on the X55 to be a tiller, which is very cool. Not many aircraft do that. Nice touch. Alright, everybody is taxiing down there. We can actually check that on the EFB. Let's run over to the other computer and we'll fire up the traffic display and see where everyone's going.
I'm back from the walk around.
You can see them here. Oh, he's back. So while we're looking at the FB, let me just play that briefing.
Are you ready for the takeoff brief?
Go ahead.
Okay, we have no mail issues today. I will be the pilot flying. It will be a standard takeoff using noise abatement procedure 1, and we will be flexing to 7 degrees. The departure will be by ATC vectors. We will use config 1 for takeoff. Runway condition is dry. As for the anti-ice, it's not required. The packs will be on. We will use standard calls today. At or below 100 knots, I'll reject for any warnings. Below V1, I will only reject for an engine failure, a fire of any kind, a configuration warning, or anything I deem will adversely affect the safety of the aircraft. I will reject the takeoff by calling stop. If you could monitor that the auto brakes have activated and that the spoilers have deployed. Once we stop, if there's a fire, I'll position that side of the aircraft to be downwind, and we'll evacuate through the open side. I'll advise the cabin, and you talk to ATC. Above V1, we'll take the aircraft into the air and sort it out there and decide if we need to return to the airfield. If you notice anything amiss during the takeoff roll, please notify me. Any questions?
That's checked and no questions.
Takeoff brief complete.
Hey Captain, may we start the boarding now?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, now we got a little bit of a quirk of how I have the sim set up. Because we're using GSX, and we're using FS to crew, and we're using the Airbus, I'm going to set boarding to start down here on the right MCDU. We'll click on that top button. Boarding will actually take longer for the Airbus than it does, and we'll load cargo as well. Will actually take longer for this to run than it does for GSX to run. So that means if I were to start GSX right now to load cargo and load people, it could actually, it will actually end up that we'll have it beeping at us to close some doors for a little while. It will live with it because I really like everything that GSX provides in terms of realism and immersion. So let's fire up GSX. Here it is. And we want to activate GSX. And we're going to request, well, let's request catering. While we're here, let's also request boarding. So the trucks are going to come out now and start boarding people and loading the food on board. We are going to need to open the right-hand doors in a second for the catering trucks to load everything on. Now we're 17 minutes out from pushback. The next event for FS to crew is going to be around about 8 minutes where the load sheet will arrive, and we'll need to accept that. Until then, we just sit and relax and watch the beauty of all these add-ons killing my PC. Let's go on outside and take a look. There's the view flashing. Again, I apologize for that hideous flashing. I might, if I have time, cut those so they're a little bit smoother. So if you're not seeing any view flashing, you know that Froogle cut the video and edited it. Here comes catering truck. We're going to get beeped at to open the doors, which we'll do. So front and rear right. Let's go ahead and do that right now, before it even tells us. So the food's being put on board now, passengers are boarding, we're all good. This guy's sitting here patiently waiting for the bags to arrive. Now you'll notice if you watch my fully loaded 737 videos, we're not very busy. Normally there's a lot more to do at this point. The Airbus is very automated, really very automated, and with the addition of efforts to crew at this stage of flight, there really isn't very much for us to do. Just sit down, check our flight plan, and watch the scenery. With that said then, let's check our flight plan. So back on the other computer here, I'll fire it up. So here's our plan. Let me change that view a little bit so we're looking at a single page. There we are, and we'll zoom in. Alright. So cruise there, flight level 380, taking off runway 23 in Geneva. We're expecting runway 26 right. It should be 26 left, surely. Whatever, that's probably wrong. So we'll change that once we get up in the air. We're flying a distance of 386 nautical miles. Average wind component is a 10 knot headwind. Here is our weights down here, which we've already managed to set up. Elevation here in Geneva for takeoff is 1,400 feet, and elevation in London Gatwick is only 83 feet. So carrying 6,123 kilograms of fuel, giving us a total endurance of 2 hours and 39 minutes. Our flight, however, is not that long. Our flight is only about an hour, so we have extra time there that I've set in for holding, and obviously extra fuel for the alternate if we need to do that. Here is our route. It's actually recommending a SID, Dippy 5A, to De Pere. We're not going to do that, we're going straight out to De Pere. And then UB37, which is an airway. Oh, close aft right door, we'll do it in a second. Down to DJL, and then TRO, CLM, Copor, Pyrec, QNAV, and then the LUMB3B star into London Gatwick. Pretty good. Let's go back into the aircraft and close the doors and stop the beeping. So it wants aft right and front right. We'll close those. That basically means the meals are on board. Catering service is done. So they're now closed. If we pop outside, you'll see them leaving. There they go. Now, as I said, GSX doesn't really add anything to the flight. It's just immersion. It's kind of like playing with your toy train set and putting really ornate, really detailed static fixtures in your train set. You know, like buildings, like people and stuff like that. Doesn't add anything, just looks very, very cool, and adds a lot of noise, as you can hear. It makes this quite a realistic apron. And we have cones around the aircraft. We can get rid of those. We'll do that in a second. We're going to leave the chocks in until we're close to the takeoff, or closer to the taxi, I should say. We are going to push back. From what I just saw on EFB, we will push back down this line here to the left, and then taxi all the way down through all the parked aircraft down here, turning left to join Alpha fairly late. So we're keeping Alpha clear. Geneva's quite a small airport, as you've seen, so keeping Alpha kind of clear for all the aircraft that are landing and then turning onto Alpha. Here are the bags coming. They took a while to get here, didn't they? See them? Maybe they're not our bags. I think they are. In fact, I'm fairly sure they are. So although I'm suffering in the frame rates, I think I really like running the sim this way. Having this much activity in the airport, all these aircraft moving around, taxiing, taking off, landing, going around, lots of go-arounds, because FSX AI is a little bit weak. It's very, very cool. It adds something, I think. Something that you don't get on VATSIM, because it's very rare to find an airport with this many aircraft. And then waiting very patiently. That's Jeff Aviano, by the way. If you watch his channel, that's actually him down there. He's going to load this plane for us. Isn't that a beautiful model? They've really done a great job on modeling this Airbus. And again, I don't like Airbuses. They're not my favorite kind of plane to fly. I don't like the level of automation. But they really have done a spectacular job in modeling this. And as I keep saying, it does look really very nice and prepared. It's just I'm having some issues lately with prepared, so I can't use that. Amazing detail. Really, really good. You can see some dirty streaks here from water. We've got a dirt mark underneath the seal here, because water's running down from the top of the aircraft, hitting that seal, then going to the left and falling straight down, so you end up with the dirt build up underneath that seal. Notice also the streaking here. That would be water around the door seals themselves as the aircraft is moving and in flight, seeping out and streaking down the side of the aircraft. Huge detail on this model. Really huge detail. I mean, it's not unusual to find highly detailed aircraft now. We would actually turn our noses up in today's day and age at an aircraft that is not rivet perfect, but this one is incredible, really incredible. Oh,
Hello,
somebody in the cockpit.
The passenger boarding is complete.
Flight deck.
And when you're ready, I have the load seat for you.
Thanks.
Have
Thanks.
a safe flight.
Alright, that could be a challenge. My mic is giving me issues. Okay, so GSX is done boarding. But I don't think the aircraft is itself, so you're going to have to put up with some beeping for a little while. Oh, yeah. No, we are actually done, so we can start closing doors. So it wants us to close the aft left door. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me whiz on down in the view here. Return. Now with 8 minutes to go, 7 minutes to go, we absolutely could request clearance as well, so we'll do that in a second. Aft left door. Shut that up. So let's go ahead and request our clearance at this point. So GSX clearance by ground on 12422.
Ground Easy 8477 ready for clearance to London Gatwick.
Easy 8477 ground cleared to London Gatwick as filed. Climb flight level 100 squawk 3234 departure frequency 124.22
3234 departure frequency is decimal 22. We will acknowledge that. We'll just acknowledge it. We won't acknowledge in contacts. We're not ready to go.
Cleared to London Gatwick as filed. Climb flight level 100 squawk 3234 departure 124.22 Easy 8477.
Easy 8477 feedback correct.
Alright, so when we're ready to go, we'll need to contact them for permission to push and start. 6 minutes out, not very long now. And as I said, we'll be using GSX for the pushback, which again makes things a little bit strange, because I need to let FS to crew kinda know that I'm starting the engines. I also need to request clearance to start from radar contact, but we'll be starting the engines ourselves kind of in sync with GSX, which is going to tell us when to start the engines. It's all very strange. One of the quirks of running this many add-ons. Oh, cabin crew.
As you locate your seats, please place your smaller items under your seats in front of you.
Let's go ahead and fire up the
to
APU
provide
while we're
more
waiting
room
now.
for larger items in the overhead bins. If you need assistance with it, please contact one of our flight attendants. If you are unable to accommodate any item in the cabin,
But we're ready
please
to go
bring it
now.
to
The
boarding
ground
door
crew have
and
disconnected
we will
external
check it.
power. We have had the doors closed. I think the chocks and everything have been removed. We'll check that on ground services. No, they haven't, so we'll do that right now. Okay, so the chocks and traffic cones have been removed. Now we can tell our first officer to start his side of it. Before start procedures,
Alitalia 238.
Before start
Echo
procedures.
7.
Alitalia
Okay.
238, ground, taxi to the ramp.
Taxi 2, the ramp, roger. Alitalia 238.
Alright, so he's doing his bit now. We can contact ground and request push and start. And then we're going to have to juggle all the various different add-ons to manage this. So, request push and start.
Ground Easy 8477 at 23, ready to push.
Easy 8477, clear to push. Start at your discretion. Contact ground when you're ready. On 124.22.
So we'll acknowledge that. We won't acknowledge and contact.
Ground on 124.22.
Okay, so we're ready to contact ground as soon as we're ready to go. So now we need to call out, well, we do have before start checklist first, so before start checklist to the line.
Before start checklist down to the line. Cockpit preparation.
Completed.
Completed. Gear pins and covers.
Removed.
Signed.
On.
ADIRS.
Nav.
Fuel quantity.
6,100 kilograms.
Takeoff data.
Set.
Baro ref.
1016 set.
1016 set. Before start checklist completed.
Now
to
in the
line.
checklist, we check nose wheel steering is on, which is down here. That's all good. We check that windows and doors are checked and closed. They're all closed. We check that the thrust levers are idle, which they currently are. Now normally you would do the AccuBrake pressure check, and in the old Airbus you would click a button up here to do that. That's not the case now. Now you just let it, it starts itself. It does the AccuBrake pressure thing during startup, so we don't need to worry about that. And we need to check that the parking brake is set, which it currently is. So let's continue our checklist now. Before start checklist below the line.
Before start checklist below the line. Windows and doors.
Closed.
Closed. Beacon.
On.
Thrust levers.
Idle.
Parking brake.
Set.
Before start checklist complete.
Alright, so let's call up GSX and do our push. That would be number 5. We're going to go nose right, tail to the left. Let's contact ground and FS to crew. This is where it gets all a little bit confusing. Cockpit to ground.
Go ahead.
We're ready for engine start.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, beacon is rotating, engine intakes are clear, and the trucks have been removed. You're clear to start all engines.
Cabin crew, arm slides and cross-check.
Now we just wait for the prompt to release the brakes and then we can start our engines. Let's bring up the EFB on the other computer. So we're currently here. An aircraft just passed us on the right hand side. Turn back on track IR, we can see him. There he is, Lufthansa. Another Airbus just landed.
Departure check completed. Flight has been inserted. Release parking brakes. Commencing push. All engines clear. Start that wheel.
Starting engine 2.
Ground November 1603. Ready for clearance to Oslo Airport. November 16.
Ah, that's not starting because we don't have bleeds on. Hang on that.
As filed, climb flight level 100, squawk 4362, departure frequency 124.22.
Cleared to Oslo Airport. As filed, squawk 4362. Departure 124.22. November 1603.
November 1603. Read that correct.
Ground November
Starting engine 1.
1603. Request start up.
November 1603. Ground startup approved.
There's the AccuBrake pressure check happening. That was the squeaky sound you just heard.
proceed.
Flight controls check.
Ready.
Clearly marked with exit signs.
Full up.
Instructions for door operation.
Full down.
Each
Neutral.
door is equipped with an
Full
exit
left.
slide.
Full right.
Locate the nearest
Neutral.
exit
Rudder.
to you and note that the nearest exit may be behind you.
Full left. Full right.
Emergency
Neutral.
lights will illuminate the aisle. The
Clear on the
cabin
left.
is pressure.
Clear on the right.
If there's a loss of cabin pressure,
And with all that done, we're actually good to go. So that will be the end of this video. In part 2, we'll actually do the taxi all the way out to runway 23, and then we'll take off, manage to take off and fly our departure and climb. And then in part 3, obviously landing this aircraft in London Gatwick. As always, do leave a comment in the comment section below. Tell me what you think. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. My name is Froogle. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.
By putting on the ends. Secure your own mask before assisting other passengers.